Hello, and welcome back to Blueprints. The game just keeps getting crazier and crazier. Last time we did a lot of stuff. And let me think. I think, yes, last time was the run that I thought for sure was going to be over a lot sooner than it was. And not only did we make it to the very end, but we also solved some very interesting puzzles. We got two of the Sanctum keys, which we didn't even know existed before yesterday, and now we have 2 out of 8. I still have no idea how to find at least some of them. Some of them I think I kind of understand. But yeah, we did a lot, and well, I say I understand some of them. The reality is, I think I know where some of them are, but I've definitely been to those places and haven't seen any keys. Like the clock tower, for instance. I'm pretty sure one of them is maybe up there. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But yeah, we opened 2 of the doors in the sanctum, and our next mission is to, I guess, create or recreate a bunch of sigils of all the different lands, all the different realms. So that's what we're gonna try to do. I'll try to take note of any new sigils that I find. And I think part of that is going to be going back to the precipice and rereading that book. Obviously, a bunch of that book is still missing. But now that we know exactly how important sigils are, I think it's a good time to go back and reread that and maybe take some more actual notes on it. One thing I will say is that in about an hour and a half, I will need to take a break and cook dinner. So if this run lasts longer than that, which based on the last 2, it probably will, then I'll need to take a break from the recording and come back later, which is unfortunately probably going to happen pretty often now. One of my very few but very large gripes with the game is that there's no way to just save and come back to the game. So at least not in the middle of a run. So that's just something we'll have to work on. Schoolhouse would be interesting. There are definitely rooms that I haven't seen. There's the whole map that I kind of want to look at again. So it's tempting, at least from a lore perspective. The tomb also has a sigil in it that I do want to look at. And then I don't know about Toolshed. Any one of these could have like the hidden false wall or whatever that was mentioned in Denny Ravaine's journal. Well, with 3 good options, that might mean that there's not really a wrong choice. So let's do Schoolhouse. That means we will need to really start prioritizing gems. Even more so than usual. And that's okay, we can do that. I don't think I see anything to pick up or look at. There's this paper, which doesn't seem incredibly important, but it is definitely interesting. I do still need to find Lady Epson's room. That is something I still haven't done. and seems kind of difficult to do, just in general. But we'll get there. Okay, next place I want to go to is the precipice. I would like to read the sigil book. And possibly, I feel like there's a sigil written at the end of it. Oh yeah, I forgot I opened that up. Still haven't opened that tunnel up. Not sure when that's going to happen or what that leads to. Yeah, precipice is down this way. Someday I will also want to go down here and change my piece to rook. And I'll have to remember to do that at the end of a run, since that's when you do the puzzle. At least if I'm correct about how the puzzle works, which it's always possible that I'm not. And I need to remember to walk slowly through here, or the game will freak out. Okay. Yeah, we read through that a little bit. That's fine. And then further down, just got more stuff. Places in here that seem like they might be passages. There's that room. And down here, I believe... Oh yeah, here's a door. No idea where that goes. Yes, here is the book I was looking for. Foreman's Copy. Do not remove from sight. So interesting. Why does the foreman need a copy of Realm and whatever this is? Sigils of the past and present. Okay. So there's one, which... Is that the one I already did? I feel like... Yes. Yes, that is the Fen Ares sigil, I'm pretty sure. Because that's what was on the passports. So I already know this one. Okay. Yes, everything is important in the sigil. There's the core, there's the rays, that's what those dividing lines are called. There's the moats, which are the little pieces around, and there's the border. Okay, makes sense. Okay, yes, here we have a list, and I can compare it with what I have in my notes. It looks like everything is probably lining up. Yes, so that first one is Orinda Ares. Next one is Fen Ares. That hourglass symbol is Araja. Or Raja, I don't know how you say that. The down arrow is Kararika, and the mountain is Arch Ares. Okay, so I have all of those, and there are 3 more that I also have, which is good. Okay, rays. Yeah, they have to do with, like, maybe transportation or the direction that the realm expanded in, maybe. Yeah. And that's both, like, the shape of the ray and the number of rays, directions of the rays. Makes sense. Although actually the... Yeah, the shape of the rays may also have to do with weather or conditions. So that's something interesting. Okay, then there's moats. So if we look at Fen Ares, which is here twice, the moats are mountains. And this does not tell us what that means. Actually, no, it's martial. It's not mountains. It's like the teeth or spikes or whatever. So it's like military. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. With what we know about like the current regime, seems very authoritarian, martial, all those kind of yeah, those kind of words. And it's also red. Yes, we know it's red. We've seen the red flags in all the classrooms. We have opened up that sigil and seen the red flag in there. Yep, makes sense. And that's a good way to know what the borders are of ones that we know the colors of. So, okay, I've started my process of converting my phone notes onto paper because I feel like it's becoming more and more necessary, especially as we get into these sigils. So, I'm just going to make a note. We're going to call it sigils. And, okay, we already have Fen Aries done. So, Fen Aries. And I'm going to go back and look at what it looks like. Here it is. Am I going to try to draw that? Yeah. Maybe just a little bit. Not in too much detail. Just going to put the squiggly lines around the center. I'm going to put the pentagon in the middle. 4 lines coming in towards it. The lines around the outside. And then the little teeth. Okay. It does not look that much like the original, but that's okay because you don't have to see my terrible drawing. Okay. Now, what do we know about some of these other ones? What we know is that the border corresponds with the color of the flag, and we know some colors. Trying to decide what the colors are. We know for sure from classroom 1, I think. Yes, from grade 1, we know 3 of the colors. We know that the mountain core is yellow, and the mountain core corresponds with Arch Aries. So I'm going to write down Arch Aries. Gonna draw a circle. Gonna draw another circle. And what am I gonna do the little zigzags around the outside, because I know that that is the border for yellow, and thus is the border for Arch Aries. Okay, got that one done, and we know that purple is Iraja. I'm gonna just change how I pronounce that every time. Just get ready. And that is going to be little lines with dashes in between for violet. So we're going to write Iraja, draw our little circle, draw our lines, draw our dashes. Okay. And then the last one we know is orange is Kararaka. So I'm going to write down Kararaka. Make our circle. And orange is little tiny triangles. just gonna draw a bunch of triangles around the edge. Okay. We now have, I think, all the borders that we know for sure. Yeah. I think that's fine. Okay, we also know that these rays, because we've taken out some of the rays, I think. There's probably some on this left page before. We know that the ones associated with Fen Aries apparently represent fog, which I think makes sense. I think if I look out, it's pretty foggy. Is that true? Yeah, can barely see anything. It's real foggy here. So yes, that would make sense. So maybe I should take some notes about what all these things mean. We know it's fog. We know that it's martial. And we know that it's red. I think that's pretty much all we can glean from this. There's also the 8 compass directions, which I don't really know what those mean yet. But those have to do with... yeah. Ship routes, 8 rays, directions, rows. So I know that there are 4 rays for Fen Aries going out. If this were a compass, they would be going out northwest, northeast, southeast, southwest. So once I get back to that map, I may want to look at what is in those directions from Fen Aries and see if I can figure out what exactly the rays mean, or the directions of the rays. Okay. And what I'm also going to do is take a picture of this page so that I know which borders go with which color once I find more colors or more borders. And I should also include the one over here that has white. I almost completely missed that. Okay, so we now have 9. No, the white one is also on the other page. So that's 8 colors, because of course there's 8 colors. Okay, well, I think that is all I needed to see here. Let me just delete that last picture. Okay. I think we're good to go with that. Just trying to think, is there anything else in there that I absolutely need to know in terms of constructing? I mean, maybe. Because what happens if I learn about the conditions of a certain realm and am prevented from seeing what that realm's sigil looks like? Then I would want to know in that case, I would want to know what condition corresponds with what kind of ray. Yep. Okay. I have that, and then same thing with this. If I know what type of realm it is, then I know what motes they use. Okay. I think that's good. Is there anything else I want to look at here before leaving? Does it use a step to come in here? I don't think so. I do know that this was drawn on a piece of paper in that little underground place that I found when we took the boat through the reservoir. I don't know how to get through that. Maybe a jackhammer? Maybe a power hammer? Although a power hammer specifically mentions brick, which that is not, so probably not that. Okay. I think that's all that I need to do down here. So now we're gonna head back up to the mansion. And we're gonna try to get started on this run. And now that I've reminded myself of that stuff down there, I think we're going to move the goal of redoing that chess puzzle to a higher priority on my list. Because I do want to find that new room that's associated with the rook. The armory, I think it is. New rooms are just so exciting. You never know if there's going to be lore in there, if there's going to be new puzzles. It's all just really good. I found so many new places last time. Not necessarily new rooms. The only new room I found was Lost and Found. But just new places in general. It's all kinds of exciting. Okay, we do have a key card this time, which is great. So if it turns out like last time where I just completely cut myself off from the foundation, I can't actually get there via the back way. And we are really prioritizing gems, so we're going to go with that. Thank you. And, okay. The gems are on the table behind you. Are they? No. That would have been funny, though. The gems are in this box. Every statement claiming where the gems are is false. The gems are in the blue box. Okay, well, we know that this one has to be false because all of these boxes claim that the gems are somewhere. And not all of them can be false. Also, if this were true, then this would be false, and that's a paradox. So we know that this one has to be false. We also know that this one has to be false because the gems are not on the table behind me. So this one has to be true. Is it really that simple? I'm willing to bet on that. Yeah. Nice. Okay. We are already looking good with gems. And I appreciate that because we will need them. For example, right here. We have 5 keys. I think that's thanks to the clock tower, which is just a great room. Here's a globe. It's got the places, but not the names. Here's the red flag. What else? I think there are only those 3 flags on here. Yeah. So, we have learned what we can about those. I guess what I could do, now that I'm thinking about it, I drew the borders around these sigils for Arch Ares, Araja, and Kararika. But I could also draw the cores because I know what they are. So the hourglass, and I will have to pull up my notes again on my phone because that's where a lot of my realms notes are. Okay, Arch Ares is the mountain, so let's go ahead and draw that in the middle. And Araja is an hourglass, so we can go ahead and do that. And the down arrow is going to be Kararika. Okay. Got that done. And we now have at least a decent bit of information about some of these sigils. I like this whole puzzle about the sigils. It's a lot of fun. We could do another classroom here. Sure. Why not? Get some more steps. Oops. Okay. This is where we learn the colors are important for the dartboard, which I kind of already knew, but that obviously has become more important as they have switched up where the colors are on the dartboard, because I previously thought that it was both color and like spatial that was determining the operation, but the spatial is just determining the order of operations, and the color itself is determining the type of operation. Do I want to spend a gem on something that's not a classroom? Maybe? I feel like stars are good. Commissary is also good, and could potentially have more gems to buy. We do have redraws too, so maybe we do that. Sure. Let's do a den for more gems, and it fits pretty well here too. Let's get that. Is there something I'm missing in here? I feel like I haven't really paid much attention to this room in a very long time. There's some swans, which I think are related to Epsons, maybe? There's a big clock. But I'm not entirely sure that that means anything in and of itself. I hear this one ticking even though the pendulum's not swinging. And these corner cabinets are completely empty, which is kind of strange. And there's a fire actually going in here. Some places have fireplaces that don't have fires. I feel like there's going to be a puzzle that involves taking note of all that stuff, but you know, I can't write everything down. Oh, I have an extra parlor. Yeah. Why not? I mean, I'm sure there's a place that it could fit better, but we also have all the classrooms with that same shape. So I don't feel too bad about it. Okay, just remembered that I had to do something at 5 o'clock as well, which it is now. So I will be right back. All right. We are back. Yes, this is a new parlor, so there's a new puzzle. The gems are in this box. This statement is of no help at all. The gems are in the blue box. Well, this seems true. I can't imagine how this would be false. The gems are in the blue box. The gems are in this box. The thing is, they can't all be true. Which means this statement is helpful. Because I'm having to figure out whether it's true or not. So maybe both of these are false? Let's see. Gems are in the blue box. If that's false and they aren't in the blue box, this one would also have to be false, which means this one... Wait. If this is true and both of these are false, then we don't know what the gems are in. So this one has to be false and both of these have to be true, right? Yes. And this is helpful by the fact that it has to be false. I'm hoping that's good enough logic. Yeah, seems like it. Okay. We are doing great on gems. We've also got a coin purse. And I think now would be a good time to head back in this direction so that we can fill out these lower ranks. Sure, let's go here. Chapel is pretty good, especially now that I have a coin purse. And I think it fits better because, I mean, this would fit best because I can already go to the room above that left parlor. But this is kind of a waste of a corridor. So, yeah, let's do chapel. Just keep our options open. And I'll go ahead and come in, get all that money. Which is pretty nice. Someday I'll be able to light these candles. That day, well, I guess I don't know, it's not today. Anything could happen. Library is fine. Hallway is a better fit. We have 5 keys, we have 7 gems, we have a lot of coins. I mean, I shouldn't be too worried about not filling out these ranks, but I kind of still am. Just want to make sure to get as much stuff as possible before moving on. So we will. I mean, gymnasium right here honestly wouldn't be too bad. We're gonna walk into it twice and then potentially never again. This would have an extra item in it, but it blocks me off from that bottom corner. Let's just do gymnasium. I think I'm fine with that here. I lose some steps, but not as much as if I had put this somewhere else. And we could put guest bedroom here, just to be okay on steps. And a gem. That's pretty nice. Alright. I think that was a good choice. Lost some steps, but gained more, and gained a gem. If I want to do Lady Epson's room, I will need to not consistently go north on this side. So, probably want to do either bedroom or nook. And if I had to choose between the two, I would say nook. Let's grab that. Is there anything else to look at in here? This is the first one I saw that had like a weird word on it. Also, there's a journal in there with notes already in it. I wonder if I had a magnifying glass, if I could actually look closer at that. I can't believe I haven't looked at this again since the first time. But there are some color-coded notes, probably to do with specific rooms, because that tends to be what the colors correspond to, at least until recently. There seems to be a grid of the house in a weird, like, center with angles and an arrow that shifts from black to white. Huh. That may be something I need to come back for with the magnifying glass. Yeah. We are in the stage of the game where I have to look at everything. And I'm pretty happy about that, honestly. I mean, classroom is fine here. I don't see any issue with that. Yeah. We'll go ahead and do that. And we'll walk in to get the apple, even though that might actually be a bigger waste of steps if I'm going to walk back out and go the other way. Okay. Everything seems fine here. Nothing out of the ordinary, and no special items. Alright, I think from here, we should go ahead and go back towards the chapel. And head up from there. Pantry fits pretty well. I think spare room might be better, just to help ensure that I make it to the foundation. And then I'm gonna head to the den. This might be a massive waste of steps to keep going back and forth like this. That's all I have to say about that. It might be. Kitchen would get me some more steps. Library is always tempting, so I'll take it. And I have a book here. I think it is maybe the Blackbridge Grotto stuff? Blackbridge, yes. The Curse of Blackbridge. And I'm the only one to have checked it out because I bought it with my own money and graciously gifted it to the estate. Which is, I mean, the estate is now owned by me, so like it's still mine. It's not that big of a deal, but you know, sometimes I kind of wish that I could just buy books and then I would have the books rather than have to check them out from the library. Okay, The Curse of Blackbridge by Redford Ewing. There is a bridge, presumably a black bridge, or named after somebody named Black. And there's a carriage. Person, horse, carriage, a hand underneath, either pointing or reaching toward the bridge. Forward. The legend of Black Bridge is one that's well known to the people of the Grand Realm. For versions of this tale have been passed down from generation to generation. With each new telling, the story has changed, becoming over the years more colorful, more verbose, and, as one might expect, increasingly horrifying. However, with so many renditions and unique personal touches, the task of confining and binding this tale to text seemed an ambitious and impossible challenge. Over the course of my research, I have heard dozens of variations of the legend, and while the details would often change, I was surprised how much of the story's heart remained the same. Yet the more I listened, the clearer it became that there could never be a definitive version of this tale capable of capturing all the wonder and myth of Blackbridge. In the end, I chose to write down what felt most authentic, the story my grandmother told me as a boy long ago. Alright, so this is a very specific rendition of The Curse of Blackbridge. Part 1, The Berry Picker from Oris. Man, this might be a long book, which means we might not be making very much progress in the next, coming up on 45 minutes until I have to take a break. Many years ago, before peace had become a familiar word, there lived a group of rogues so wayward that the locals deemed it appropriate to call their number the Unholy Hounds. They were feral outlaws, composed of society's worst in a time when society was at its worst, and for each crime that fearful travelers credited to the group, a dozen more lay unclaimed, each worse than the last. For the gentry, however, who often value their coffers more than their companions, no crime could measure more wicked than the group's primary enterprise, high road robbery. One such member of this so-called band of rogues was a boy of 13 years, Jesper, who had not been lucky in life, having lost 2 brothers to war and parents to famine. In the years of hunger that followed, Jesper lived in a gutter behind a churchyard, relying on the nourishment of scurrying bugs and weeds harvested from the cracks of the alleyway to sustain his pitiful existence. It is not surprising that a child aiming to escape such hardships would take any easy road out, an easy and well-traveled road, paved with temptations, leading out of the city and into the gentry lands where loose purse strings entwine with the strands of salvation and glisten equally with the hope of opportunity. It was this road that eventually led Jesper to the end of his youth, a hidden cave at the bottom of Blackbridge Canyon. It was here that he met his surrogate family and saviors, that notorious gang of godless outlaws known as the Unholy Hounds. Despite the hardened circumstances that had led him to this vocation of banditry, Jesper was surprisingly tender-hearted and was often teased by the group for being too kind for such an ignoble life. For this reason, Jesper was assigned the innocent role of berry picker. It was not just innocence that set berry picking apart from the gang's more wicked undertakings, for it was the only duty performed without the safety of night's concealment. Jesper, no stranger to solitude, did not protest that he alone worked while the others slept soundly, tucked away in the cave at the bottom of Black Ridge Canyon. On one such occasion, Jesper decided to get an early start. He left the cave, berry basket in hand, and set out into the woods before the morning sun had even brushed against the tallest treetops. It was colder in the mornings, but the headway dawn afforded meant Jesper could reach the furthermost berry patches without worry of being chastised for tarrying upon his return. It took over 3 hours on foot to reach his destination, and along the way Jesper had passed by many a familiar bush, all priorly pillaged and so bereft of berries that one would have to dedicate several moments in earnest examination before finding a single one. Jesper was patient, but even patience has its limits. He was confident that even accounting for the time lost to this long stretch of travel, his efforts would be well worth the pains. Surveying the patches in this new grove surprised even Jesper. The red dots suspended among the leaves seemed as numerous as stars in the skies. Upon seeing such a bounteous sight, he clutched his berry basket tightly and nearly toppled over out of joy. Once he had regained his senses, Jesper quickly made a decision. He would not reveal the location of this newfound treasure. Instead, he would earn the respect of his confederates, who, upon seeing his yield, might attribute the success to hard work. Smiling at his plan, Jesper set off to fill his basket and was making steady strides in his task when the sound of thundering hooves interrupted him. A carriage is approaching. The thought of it made Jesper freeze. Had he been so enchanted by his discovery that he had neglected to observe his surroundings? How could a roadway be so close? He ducked down and crept toward the impending sound, hiding behind one of the larger bushes nearby. It was only a moment before the sound's source revealed itself. Within 50 paces of where Jesper hid, an elegant carriage with gold trim came soaring around a corner of trees, led by 2 beautiful white horses and conveyed by a stern-looking driver seated atop the vehicle, flaunting the most sophisticated regalia Jesper had ever seen. It was not just any carriage, it was a royal carriage. Even without ever having witnessed such a sight before, Jesper was certain. The sight had so transfixed Jesper that he stood awestruck, unable to tear away as the carriage approached. The little concealment the bush provided was soon proven unequal to the driver's lofty perch, and upon spotting the boy, he pulled the reins with such effect that the noble steed slid to a sudden halt with precise control. "You, boy, get out from behind that bush," he shouted, with a rigidity that betrayed a modest amount of fear. "You startled me half to death coming round the bend of my own drive, and me seeing such an unfamiliar face in a place where there ought not be any face." Jesper quickly contemplated running. The man was much older, and his dress was suitable for courtly behavior, not dashing through the bramble and mud. I was picking berries." Jesper raised the half-filled basket up to allow the driver to see the proof of his words. The demeanor of the man suddenly changed. It was a change that Jesper was familiar with. He had many times seen the same stern expressions on the most fiendish bandits melt away when presented with a berry basket. Any suspicions that the driver might have had instantly evaporated, for even the notion of a member of the Unholy Hounds picking berries seemed farcical. The softened expression even made allowances for a smile. "Berries, eh? Say, you couldn't have picked a better spot for them, could you? I used to pick berries here as a boy." Jesper took his cue to finally step forward out from behind the bush, proudly brandishing his basket. "I know, and what luck I found them. I have only just begun picking, and look how many I have. It would have taken me fourfold the time back home to procure this number." The driver bent down for a closer look. "And where is your home, boy? It must be quite far?" Jesper replied with a scripted response. "A little south of Tanner Fork, just past the burnt woods." "My God, that is far. You couldn't have come all that way only this morning." It was true. Tanner Fork was in the exact opposite direction that Jesper had traveled, and while that response would seem perfectly reasonable in a location closer to Blackbridge Canyon, he could see why it might seem less believable here. "Sir, I have traveled much farther for much less profit. I dare say there is no distance yet made by man that would not be worth undertaking for a prize such as these. Surely you have tasted them for yourself." Jesper felt happier with his response, as it seemed to amplify the man's smile. "In my youth, often, but perhaps I took it for granted because I never had to travel very far. And even then, my father would always drive us here in our carriage, so I'm ashamed I never had to walk such a stretch to earn an equal reward." It was Jesper's time to smile. "Then let my efforts reward us both today." He raised the basket even higher. "A taste in memory of your youth, sir." The driver chuckled and removed one glove, bending over the seat to reach down to the basket. And at the moment his fingers touched the first berry, the dagger in turn met his throat, cutting through a superficial layer of skin and drawing blood. Jesper caught the man's startled eyes. "And for that taste, I will have your purse, sir, in memory of my youth." The driver's arm had gone stiff, his chin raised and trembling, more frightened than he had ever been before. Whether unable or incapable of speaking, he did not respond to the boy. Perhaps he did not think his jaw could afford to be engaged at this particular time. Jesper let the basket drop, freeing his other hand to probe the man's pockets. "Do not mistake me, sir. I will not kill you if you give me no cause. Though I will admit, the thought of taking your carriage and leaving you the indignity of walking appeals to me." Unable to find a purse in the man's coat, Jesper pivoted to search the seat under him. "Why have you no purse upon your person?" The driver slowly raised his hand cautiously, pointing toward the carriage door behind him. Jesper lowered the knife's edge a small degree to allow the man to speak, which he did in turn softly. "There's a lockbox in the carriage." "Well, come down then and grant me the courtesy of sparing your life and binding your hands, a concession I assure you of my tender heart, for it would be much easier to slit your throat." The man started to comply, slowly lowering himself from the driver's seat of the carriage. Once down, Jesper guided him away from the carriage to a nearby tree, where he instructed him to get on his knees and put his hands behind his back. Excusing his inexperience, the man indulged Jesper while he figured out how to adequately bind him. The smile and kindness Jesper had seen on this man's face, now nothing more than a distant memory. In their place, cold, dark eyes displaying no emotion. "I wonder, should I grant you the same clemency you are showing me?" Jesper stopped, surprised by the question, but ignored it, secured his final bindings, and then hastily returned to the carriage. With one hand on the door's handle, he turned back to the man. "If there is no lockbox, there will be no clemency." Inside, the carriage was surprisingly dusty and unswept, a stark contrast to the elegant and polished golden facade of the exterior. It had apparently been many years since a passenger had enjoyed passage in this vehicle. This all but confirmed what Jesper had suspected. The driver of this carriage was not a liveried? What? I have never seen that word before. Servant in the employ of some greater master. Any curiosity that this observation might have further produced was quickly abandoned upon seeing what rested under the carriage's back seat, a large wooden lockbox. Despite its hefty appearance, the box was surprisingly easy to handle. Within a few minutes, Jesper had dislodged it from its hold and carried it out into the sunlight. Inspecting the box carefully, two observations were made. Totemic symbols found carved on all four sides of the box hinted that the box was very old and likely not created by Arindian hands. It reminded him of artifacts from the old world and was presumably crafted in one of the ancient realms. Secondly, the box was secured by a rusted yet robust padlock and would not open easily without a key. Jesper looked over to see the driver quietly observing from his indentured position. "Do you perhaps have a key you can provide me to open this box?" Without emotion, the driver replied, "There is no key to that box." Jesper stood up. "Easy enough, then." He headed over to a nearby rock of sizable dimensions and lifted the stone up, carrying it back to the box. If there was ever a time when that lock had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. With one hit, the stone had completely shattered the rusted lock. He bent back down and opened the lid. Inside was an effigy, a crude figure chiseled from stone. Without too much deliberation, Jesper bent down and picked it up, somewhat surprised how heavy it seemed given how light the box had felt. Having expected to find something more akin to gold or gems, he looked questioningly to the man, hoping to find an explanation. The driver's smile had once again returned. "You are cursed, boy, for deadly is the stone. You have opened that which should never have been opened, and you are cursed." Jesper carried the effigy over to the man and shoved it in front of his face. "What is it?" "That's one." Feeling his disappointment rising to anger now, Jesper tightened his grip on the effigy. "One what, you mumbling agentor? And in God's name, why have you no purse upon your person?" The man did not seem intimidated. "1 pace." He paused for effect. 12 more, and you will be dead." He only had a second to flinch before the effigy struck him in the head and put an end to his cryptic ramblings. If there was ever a time when the old man had been resistant to brute force, it wasn't recent. Jesper looked down at the sculpted stone figure, now splattered red. Was it cursed? Was he cursed? He had of course heard stories of curses and had never doubted their validity in the past, but now that he was standing face to face with the possibility of being cursed, his mind pleaded with him to be skeptical. And if he was cursed, what difference would the knowledge make? A dozen more paces would not be enough to find another living soul, to say nothing of the chances of procuring a remedy. If he did not move from where he now stood, he could live maybe another 3 or 4 days, maybe more given the abundance of nearby berries. A plan that, if we ignore its obvious faults, might provide additional opportunities for help to come along. But what good would that do? To be discovered here, beside a body, stolen goods in hand, bloated from berries and raving about a curse that could very well not be real. No, it would most certainly be better to face one's fate now, take a dozen paces and see if life goes on. But Jesper found his legs unable to make that first step. His mind was unable to convince his limb to waste away 1/12 of his life in a single motion. Feeling the desperation sink in, he hopelessly looked about him for a solution. And if, by some stroke of luck, the gods had heard his plea, a miracle materialized before him, as if he found himself suddenly at the end of a fairy tale. 2 white horses and a carriage of golden trim were beside him, the answer to his immediate prayers. He laughed at his fortune and calculated the short number of paces back to the road. 4, perhaps only 3 if he jumped. He made a quick survey to see if there was anything he wished to grab before taking the plunge. He thought about removing the driver's fancy coat, as that appeared to be of some value, but the additional risk of undertaking such a task too great to chance. And so, after a profound breath, he took his second, third, and fourth steps, though they were quite large. Seated now behind the horses, he reached for the reins and suddenly realized that he was still gripping the effigy. If the curse was real, then it would most certainly be better left here. If, on the other hand, the story was fictitious, there might be some appraisal that could be made of the figure. It was, after all, found within a lockbox whose typical function often secures objects of value. Having witnessed firsthand the horrors of destitution, Jesper found his mind equally reluctant to allow his hand let go. If it is cursed, I die. If not today, then tomorrow. And if I die, what care have I? And with that statement said aloud, to the horses seemingly, Jesper took up the reins with confidence. Is this gonna... I might need to just skip forward and... Okay, it's just 2 parts. We can do this. Okay, part 2, below the Black Bridge. Miller awoke to some light nudging from a familiar foot. Only one person would have the check to awaken her in such an ill-mannered fashion. Shaking the sleep from her eyes, she glared up at him in the darkness, but did not say a word. He nudged her again teasingly, then stepped back into the dim. After taking a moment for her eyes to adjust to the darkness of the cave, Miller remembered. She was on 3rd watch today. Quietly collecting her things and wits, Miller turned as she left, waving to her young friend, who was more than likely already asleep. She crept through the cavern's main passage, careful not to wake the sleeping bandits around her. Like a hero in a book, she often mused. Quietly, she grabbed a bow from the haphazardly formed pile of weapons, shaking the accompanying quiver in the darkness to assess how many arrows it held. She then walked toward the sun-drenched mouth of the cavern, ready to start her shift. Above her, in one of the few trees found in the canyon, Miller could see that Ravia was already posted. She waved and Ravia waved back. Calling out to each other was strictly forbidden. Anything louder than a gesture in the canyon was forbidden. When Miller reached the tree, Ravia lowered a braided rope and pointed to the ground behind her. Miller turned, following the finger, and saw a pail of water resting beside a nearby log. She turned back to Ravia, nodded, and secured the pail to the rope. The pail went up first, and in turn Miller followed. Ravia reached across to grab the water. Miller leaned back to give her space. There was not much room for maneuvering in this tree post, a necessary concession for the concealment the outpost demanded. Ravia tilted the pail up to her mouth dramatically, illustrating how thirsty she had been. Miller laughed silently as water poured out, splashing onto Ravia's face. It was a bit too daring and noisy of a joke, and had the others been around, they would have certainly been scolded for the unwarranted sound. But Miller appreciated the efforts Ravia took to verbalize the silence of the morning. They had been on third watch together for over a month, and during that speechless time their friendship had grown into something special. Affection was unsurprisingly scarce among the unholy hounds. She had felt camaraderie before, of course, but intimacy never. From their elevated vantage, the girls could see both the concealed entrance of the cavern as well as a clear view of the bridge that spanned across the canyon. Black Bridge was the link between the Gentry lands and the northern mountains, the overpass that connected Oris and Reddington. To the city-faring travelers of the realm, the bridge was an unavoidable crossing. In the day, the task was to ensure that travelers passed by without stopping. At night, the task was to ensure that they do. Like most of her band, Miller preferred the night. The biting glare of the sun might be tolerable to farmhands and bricklayers, but to a cavern-housed bandit, it was a source of constant annoyance. In the day, there was no shroud to conceal her expressions, nor to hide her thoughts. She felt exposed. Ravia touched her elbow and pointed up. Miller, striving to suppress a budding smile, suddenly shook her head in response. There were many signs that the unholy hounds used in lieu of words, but the two of them had developed an extended vocabulary, gestures quietly forged in the shared solitude of their month among the branches. She watched as Ravia shifted, placing her palms flat on the floorboards beneath them. Miller knew what she was trying to say, but shook her head a second time. It was often more fun to pretend not to understand. Ravia rolled her eyes and turned away, looking back to the canyon. Squinting through the leaves, the two girls held still, watching and listening. It was not long until Miller, too, heard the sounds of approach. Ravia held up two bent fingers, and a few moments later, two men emerged from the bridge's southern end. They were dressed in a familiar uniform, long gray coats with black facings, white waistcoats, and black tricorn hats. They belonged to the local patrol, the Black Guard. Although not an everyday occurrence, their presence at Black Bridge wasn't an unusual sight. It typically indicated an important traveler's impending passage across the bridge, information that the girls would promptly relay to their leaders as soon as the coast was clear. But this report, while exciting, was rarely acted upon. In Miller's 5 years in the Unholy Hounds, she had never once seen a carriage taken in open daylight when the Blackguard was nearby. The men had nearly reached the bridge's north end when Miller heard the horses, faintly at first, but growing louder with each passing moment. Ravia's eyes met Miller's. The same concern mirrored in each other's expression. This did not sound like the typical carriage, cautiously approaching the bridge to cross. Instead, the familiar crunch of the high road's gravel, they heard the harsh clattering of hoofbeats against stone. Both girls quickly redirected their attention downwards, looking through the foliage. The sounds were not coming from the high road, but from the canyon itself. The horses were coming from below the bridge. In an instant, Miller had knocked an arrow and drawn her bow. Go! Ravia was gone before the whisper had even left Miller's mouth. The young scout was already sliding down the bank below, racing toward the cave. There was no road that ran below the canyon. There was no reason for numerous horses to be approaching their cave. There was only one reasonable conclusion, and both girls had reached it instantly. The base had been compromised. This was a Blackguard attack. The moment the horses came into view, Miller let loose her first arrow. She was surprised to see a carriage. She had expected cavalry. Before she even finished processing that thought, her second arrow was in the air. Without a trail, it would be unthinkable for a carriage to traverse such rough terrain. Yet she watched as the wheels jolted over the rocky riverbed. A third arrow was now in flight, and there would be no need for a fourth. The driver slumped over just moments before the vehicle dipped into a small ditch, slamming into an embankment. The force of this sudden halt immediately shattered the front two wheels and catapulted the driver from his seat. Utterly confused now, Miller quickly glanced over her shoulder to see if any horses were also approaching from the rear. Down in the canyon, the entire horde of the unholy hounds came spilling forth from the earth as if hell itself had suddenly sprung open. The group seemed even more bewildered than Miller, half asleep and tripping over one another in a desperate attempt to engage an unseen enemy in combat. Miller could see Ravia among their number, the only one looking up at her. Her expression was chilling. There would be no need for a silent gesture to convey what they both now realized. They had made a mistake. The gang's chieftain, Geoffrey Heartslasher, led the others, cautiously approaching the crashed carriage like a suspicious fox would near a baited trap. There were no words exchanged as the group crept forward in customary silence. A dozen or so paces in front of the wreckage lay the far-flung driver, an arrow protruding from his broken body, and beside him a blood-stained effigy carved from stone. Miller was inconsolable. Jesper had always been her favorite. He had always shadowed her in the night, clinging to the hems of her every move, the way a child tails behind an older sibling. Tender-hearted, she had always called him, though deep down she had known that wasn't quite true. His appearance of gentleness concealed a raw, resilient durability that emerged in the most perilous of situations. He had been a flower among the nettles of this cave, but he still had thorns, honed by a grim past and 100 hands of misfortune. They buried him in the darkness, in the back of one of the larger cavern rooms. He was interred with a berry basket and a silk handkerchief that he had treasured. The mysterious effigy they had found beside him served as a distinguished gravestone, a marker that stood out as somewhat special among the rows of similar swords marking neighboring plots. No one spoke, not even in whispers. There was nothing to say. Miller awoke the next day to a thunderous shaking and rattling of the earth, a far cry from the playful nudging of the previous day. She strained to adjust her eyes, but the choking sting of stirred-up dust caused her to flinch. Panic was also in the air. The sounds of scurried footsteps and clattering feet filled the space around her, but even in alarm the silence was louder. What was it that sounded so strange? Miller closed her eyes tight and used her feet to guide her along the passage. The whispers around her were getting louder, and intense voices could be heard ahead, louder speech than she had ever heard spoken in the canyon. A growing dread grew as Miller approached the mouth of the cave. Her eyes now opened wide despite the dust. Shouldn't it be day? Miller felt a hand in the darkness, pulling at her. It was Ravia. The two embraced, and Miller did not need to see her to understand. Ravia placed 2 bent fingers against Miller's cheek, and with that touch against her face, Miller felt the same sinking feeling from the previous day. 2 bent fingers confirmed what Miller had suspected. The girls had forgotten to relay one critical piece of information to the others. An hour or so later, the screams began. Blood-curdling cries of hopeless desperation. Captain Fodrick Lee of the Black Guard looked down from the ridge of the canyon to the collapsed entrance of the cave. Ah, he grinned. Now they speak. Interesting. That's like a lot of kind of intertwined threads that lead to this disaster. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure if there's like information in here that I can use for Blackbridge Grotto in particular. Um, there is the symbol of Orinda Aries right there at the bottom right corner. But I mean, that seems to fit in pretty normally with everything else going on. Huh. Very interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure if there is information in there that will help me with any like puzzles or anything like that, but I don't know. Maybe. I'd like to look at these things just to see. Sanctum keys 2. Yes, okay. Those are being counted right there. That is good. And is there anything new in here? Pump room. Interesting. I guess I pretty much do take that every time, especially since it has the pool as a prerequisite. Okay, I've got 4 of these now. Which makes sense. Still don't have any of those 8 things. I don't know if those are connected with the sigils or not. I obviously didn't solve that puzzle that was by that Fen Aries sigil because I didn't really understand how yet. I think the orange ones maybe were giving me the most trouble. Yeah, hopefully highest grade goes up today. And hopefully we get a new room of some kind. Okay. I was mostly wondering about the those 8 empty rectangles. But it seems like I still don't have whatever that requires. Okay, I don't want to freeze my assets today. Definitely not. This is kind of a bad place for a classroom. But there's nothing that's bringing me up to the next rank here, so might just be worth it to do that. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, and here are the maps, which is what I wanted to look at. Oops. Everything's getting caught on everything. Okay. That's what happens when you wear headphones and have a controller and a mic and all that. Okay. I think it is time to kind of... Might be better to look at one of these, actually, to draw. Okay. So, yeah, I think Orinda Aries and Fen Aries are the same place, which seems to be in the middle of the eastern group of realms. Above that is Arch Aries. Below that is Araja. And kind of the big chunk island to the west of that is Nuance. Then over here, the huge section is Kararika. And then we have Morajai to the northeast and Vera as, I guess, a group of islands to the south. Moorraven and Arindia, I guess, are the two. I don't know, it's hard to tell what those are labeling. Up there, it says, is that Orsphere? Third era? And they've like got their own planets and everything. Huh. Here's the south the south key? Oh, and it has symbols and everything. Or like the sigil cores. So the down arrow is Kararika. So that's Kararika. Down there is... Oof, I don't know. Let me look at my notes. That would be Vera. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So east of Kararika is Vera. East of that should be Nuance. So is the diamond Nuance? Yes, it is. And then to the east of that, at the southernmost point, would be... Trying to think if I can remember, because I just looked at it. No, I can't. Iraja. Or Araja. No, I already forgot how I'm pronouncing it. Iraja, I think is what I'm saying, which is the hourglass. Yes. So yeah, that makes sense. That's the south. There is like a landform at the southernmost point. So we don't really know what that is. I also have no clue what this is all about. Yeah. I've got nothing. Is that a cross-section of the planet, maybe? I don't necessarily think that makes too much sense, but... Is eclipse and ineclipse. Isles of Orsay. Do those correspond with isles that I've seen? I don't think so. No. So there's just stuff that I'm not seeing on the map, for sure. And then there's stuff up there that I just can't really even tell what it is from up here. Oh, the North Circle's up there. But that's going to give me information I probably already know. This is the Sacred Circle, which is so cryptic and interesting. There are all these boxes. Also, there's music right now. I don't know if that's typical. These are angels wielding tools. So would these be... What was the word for those? Ajeran angels. So this one would be Vea. And this one would be Rina, I think. Oh, I can... Wow, this whole time. Okay, well, this would be a great thing to have a magnifying glass for. The Seeker of Signs is very interesting, because the center of that is Kararika, which I wouldn't have assumed to be like the center of anything, although it is huge, if the scale on the map is correct. The Devoted Circle seems to show this planet and its moon, maybe? Etsphere, Third Era. Etsphere and Orsphere, I guess, are hemispheres, maybe? There is a... On the left, there's some arrows pointing down, which seem to resemble the arrows of Kararika. And they point... assuming they're pointing. They could just be symbols, I don't know. But they kind of lead towards this flag at the top of a mountain, with a path with several points that leads downwards. And then on the right side, there's giant tree with 2 towers and 2 people standing outside the towers. And then at the top, there seems to be a bat, and I don't know if that's a bird or some sort of mythical creature, but they're both like chained to, I think that's a person holding the chains. Okay. What do I see over here? I saw the 2 angels already. There's a guy with a telescope on the left. Just seems to be there's lots of people doing different things all around. I think I'll need a magnifying glass to really understand what's going on. I do want to see if I can see what that says up at the top right, the moon. What's interesting is that there seems to be a moon orbiting this planet. Yes, that's this planet. And then there also seems to be something orbiting that. I think it's the devoted moon and something else. Can't really see it from here. The Seeker of Signs is really interesting, though. So why is that in the center? And it looks kind of like a sigil, but not entirely. And then if we look closely at this bottom left one, we've got Mamora, which is the closest planet to the sun. We've got Mora, which I think is next. Then Vea, which is one of the names of the angels. Then we have Dauja, which is also one of the names of the angels. And we have Fenmora, which is interesting when you think about like Fen Aries. Okay, well now I know I can look at the maps. I don't know if I knew that before or not, but I do now. That's for sure. Okay, what I'd like to do is write down where all of these are on the map. So, you know, I should probably look at the actual map. Okay, so over here, we kind of have 3 big sections. So it freaks me out every time the music cuts out, just suddenly. So right here, we have Mora Jai, which Mora, Moraven. I'm so confused by some of these labels because I don't really know what they're referring to. But there's Moraven, there's Mora Jai. The planet might be called Mora, but I've also seen like Orindia written somewhere. So I'm not sure. But Mora Jai is up there. Then we have Vera, and we have Korarika. And then over on the other end, we've got 4 chunks, which kind of look like maybe 2 or 3 large chunks that have been separated out into sections. And these are a lot harder to draw. So we have that as nuance. Okay, and then in the south we have Araja, or however I'm deciding to pronounce that. Araja. Okay, and then we have Orinda Aries. Okay. Orinda Aries. And then up in the north, we have Arch Aries. Okay. Now I know where everything is. I know what all the symbols are. So, I'm trying to think. There was like an order to them, right? Yes. And I think it's the order that they appear. Well, maybe not. I'm really not sure. So in room 46, there is like a map, and there are 8 pins, and you can place those 8 pins in the 7 different realms. But I don't know what order they go in. Presumably we would start with Orinda Aries and then kind of work our way around. Yeah, I'm not sure. I might have to look at the floor back in the inner sanctum again, because I know that had sigils in a certain order, but I can't remember if it made sense with the map or not. Because in my memory, I feel like Orinda Aries and Fen Aries were right next to each other in that order. I could be wrong about that, but if they are, that doesn't really make sense. Because I think 1 would have to be Orinda and 8 would have to be Fen, or vice versa. Because I think you need to end where you start. Okay, anyway, I think that's all that I needed to do in here. And we are quickly running out of time before I need to take a break. Which is unfortunate, because I feel like I've made 0 progress in the actual run. Made lots of knowledge progress, but, you know, that doesn't count for a lot when we're on a time limit. At least not for the time limit. It counts for a lot for other things. Corridor would get me to the foundation, and none of these other ones will. I think I'm just going to take it. And I think I'm just going to go through, because I don't really have steps to just be throwing out willy-nilly like I have been. So, right. I could go down to the inner sanctum right now. And I might, but I think I really need to actually do things in terms of the actual run. Boiler room is always tempting. And what do I need the boiler room for? The pump room, that's right. If I can divert power from the boiler room to the pump room, that might be really helpful. Yeah. I think that's something that I need to work on doing. So I will. We do need to divert this, which I think is fine. I'm not going to go back there until I have the code, maybe. One thing I still haven't looked up is like the chess notation for a queen on d8, because I am intrigued by that, especially when you combine it with the idea that that code has an 8 at the end, but all the other 3 things are letters. Anyway, I need to figure out how to divert power back up here. Which I think I just missed it, actually. I think I need to do this. Yeah, and that brings power up there and raises the, or extends the bridge. So then I can come across here. I can open this door if I want. And let's go ahead and change that. Turn the power on. Did I do it? Yes, there we go. And then we'll figure out which way we want that to go after we go somewhere. So let's move that. That's all fine. Okay, so the question is, can I get, Okay, doesn't look like anything that has, well, Archives has vents, which is good. The downside is that I won't be able to see a whole lot. Could get Wine Cellar just for the gems, so I might do that. Man, I really don't want Archives. But it does have the vents. Sure, I'll take it. I think I'm just gonna have to put up with that for now. And by for now, I mean for the rest of the run. Is there anything else in here that I missed? There's a picture of Manning and White. Yeah, the heist, which we saw like the plan of earlier. Also in that underground area. This way is the way to the next open room. Dark room also has things. Furnace would give me a key, which I don't really need. And then this, I mean, if I were to guess, this would be a classroom. Sure, we can do dark room. And before I walk in there, I should actually reroute power this way. Because then I think the lights don't shut off when I do that. If my previous theory is correct. My previous theory is not correct, which I may have already disproven at some point and forgot about. I think that was just like a weird series of events that happened last time. I mean, it's random, but I think these are powered. Okay, I've already done that, so I don't need to do that again. Yeah. Ooh, battery. I'm really going to need to stop shortly, but I don't want to. Let's run an experiment. Okay. 3 aquariums to the draft pool. Doing that multiple times sounds really chaotic and not helpful. Spread dirt on the driveway. Interesting. Set your steps to 40. That might be helpful. I mean, I do have archived floor plans now. And I do have less than 40 steps. Let's do it. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Do I want to read USV levels? Seems like that might be kind of pointless. What I could also do instead... Whoops, wrong thing. That's not what I meant to do. I meant to do that. There we go. I could remote into... Oh, they're all offline. What I was going to do is do a security and go ahead and raise the security levels. I think that would be a good use of my one remote terminal use. Yeah, keycard system. We'll set it to high. And we'll go ahead and change offline mode as well. Yeah, return to security menu. Could view inventory. One ivory dice is somewhere that I did not find. So that's kind of unfortunate. But I think overall that's not that big of a deal. Okay, so now we can go up from the boiler room. And what's great is that we can still actually see when rooms are powered up by the boiler room. So even if it's archived, I think we should be able to determine whether power will be running in here. Yeah, we'll go ahead and use a key. We have some. Passageway seems to be the only one, and it actually fits really well here. It is 2 gems though. I'm okay with that. Because that's a lot of possibility for the boiler room. Here's a keycard door. And there's another keycard door. Those are both pretty nice. Let's not go that way just yet. Let's go this way. Okay, we have furnace, which is not especially helpful. Courtyard fits well here. It does cost a gem though. This one has the crown. Sure, we'll do the crown. Why not? Mostly because I've already forgotten what it does. Yeah, we have the crown now, which does, if I can get to it, there we go. First time you draw a red room while drafting, you may remove it from today's draft pool. And you gain a gem, and you redraw floor plans. Oh look, my little sigil is down there, just noticed that. The pentagon, which is Fen Aries. Okay, so now we have the crown, which will let us remove a red room. We've already gotten a lot of red rooms, and we've already gotten a lot of bad ones, actually. I think up is the play. Yeah. Man, and no powered up rooms. That's really unfortunate. In that case, let's go with classroom. It's grade 5. We already know about this stuff. It's just the paintings again. Or the drawings. Man, I feel like I haven't accidentally called them that in a long time. It's fine, it's fine. There's break room. I'd really like to make it a cross if possible, so let's redraw. I mean, walk-in closet's not too bad, but I really don't want to use my gems. I would kind of like to see that t-shirt at some point, but maybe not right now. Dining room is actually pretty good here. So even though it doesn't go up, I think we're gonna go ahead and get that. And we can have our lunch. So that's nice. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I put it off for long enough. This is probably where I'm going to have to take a break. So I will be back at some point in the future. See you then. Okay, I made dinner, I ate dinner, and time to keep going. Yes, okay. I'm trying to think, should I go back to the passageway and keep drafting from there? Maybe at some point. For now, I think I want to head to the right side and see what we can do. Really don't want to spend a gem if I don't have to, so we're gonna do this. Okay. This would get me further down. And I do have some money, although I don't think I have enough for any of the stuff left at the shop. Let's do archived. Well, I just realized that actually gets me less steps, fewer steps. But that's all right. We got some stuff out of it. And then let's see if we can head up from here. It's locked. I think that's fine. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go with archived here. Ooh, grade 6. Okay, interesting. We've got an overhead projector, or actually just a regular projector, which was pretty high tech for the 90s. History worksheet multiple choice. Who was the first crowned ruler of Fen Ares? Prince Learson, General Teskin, or Desolates the Fourth? Which city in Fen Ares is named after a historical figure? Fen, Oris, or Reddington? How many sons did the fourth king of Arindia have? 2, 5, 8, 60, and 6. How long did the War of the Fifth Era last? 6 years, 12 years, 22 years, or the entire era? Which realm did not ally with Fen Ares during the war? Arch Ares, Araja? I already forgot. I think it's Araja, or Nuance. What flag was forbidden to be flown at full staff after the war? Flag of Surrender, Banner of House Learson, or Black Flag? Interesting. I'm going to assume the Black Flag, because I think that is Arinda Ares, which I assume is the realm that was here before Fen Ares took over. Okay, 4 out of 6 of these are right. Okay. 4 out of 6 of these are right. And this one. And then there's one over here. 3 out of 6. Okay. Interesting. Can I interact with this projector? Yes, I can. Let's see the next slide. Oh. Thankfully, I don't have an actual body, so I don't cover the screen. Okay, this is the war. The War of the Fifth Era. That put Fen Ares in charge of this area. Very interesting. I wonder how long it's been in this era. Like, how long has it been since that war? Because that looks like it would be a long time ago compared to the technology we have now. Yeah, this would be Fen Ares' victory, I guess, but with casualties and injuries. Okay. There's the king. There are the pentagons in the back, which makes sense. Oh, that's a really interesting, like, insignia. There's lots of pentagons going on. It's pretty cool. And the king has a scepter and a red throne. Yeah, I mean, the more I learn about this, the more it's hard to see the Red Prince children's book as being anything but commentary. Okay, they're building a railroad, which I assume would be relatively new technology. And here's a big celebration, which they've got like a crazy looking blimp, I think, or a zeppelin. I don't know what the difference between a blimp or a zeppelin. This looks like it's the palace, and there's like a procession. And that is a statue of, let me find it, Orinda, pretty sure. All right. And then we start over. Interesting. Okay. Now is when I look through these and figure out which answers are the right ones. Which might take me a second. So 4 out of these are right. So Cole chose the black flag for the last one. So did Richard. So did Noah. And so did Chris, which makes me think that that one's pretty much certainly correct. Because I think that one's probably an easy one that everyone got. So let's look at question 1 then. First crown ruler of Fen Ares. So this person said Prince Learson, General Teskin, Desolates the fourth, General Teskin. Okay. So 2 people said Teskin. So maybe. But yeah, I'm not sure. Which city is named after a historical figure? Reddington, Oris, Reddington, Oris. So they were split on that one. How many sons did the 4th king have? It says 2, 2, 2, 60 and 6. Well, I feel like 60 and 6 is probably wrong. I mean, I guess you never know, but that seems like a lot of sons. And everyone else said 2. So I feel like 2 is probably correct. How long did the war last? This is 22 years. The entire era, 22 years. 12 years. Okay, so maybe 22. Which realm did not ally with Fen Ares? This one was Arch Ares. Arch Ares. Araja. Araja. I would think that that would be like a common knowledge if we're living in Fen Ares, knowing which realm didn't ally with us. But I guess you never know. So let's say Black Flag is right. That means these three got 3 other ones right. That person got 2 other ones right. And let's say 2 is the number of suns. Then that's 1 of the 2 that this person got wrong. And then everyone else has 2 other questions they got right, 1 other question they got right. 22 years is probably correct. So that leaves 2 more for this one. That's 1 of the 2 this person got wrong. That leaves 1 more correct for this one. And that's 1 of the ones this person got wrong. Okay. Probably should be doing this on paper. Because it's hard to keep this in my head. Let me go back around here. So if we say 22 years is correct, Black Flag is correct, 2 children is correct. So this person, there's 2 that they got right that I haven't chosen yet. So let's say Reddington. Let's just do a what if Reddington is correct. Then this person got that one wrong. Which means they would have gotten questions 1, 3, 5, and 6 all correct. Okay. Let me take a quick note on this. So this is grade 6. And if 1 is Desolates, the 4th. If 2 is Reddington. If 3 is 2. 4 is 22 years. 5 is a Raja. And 6 is Black Flag. So if those are the right answers, let's see if that actually lines up with what everyone got. So Cole would have gotten number 1 wrong, number 3 wrong, and all the rest right. Okay, so that would line up. This one would also line up because they got 2 wrong and they got 4 wrong and everything else right. This person would have gotten 1 wrong and 5 wrong, so that lines up. And this person got 1, 2, 4, and 5 all wrong, which does not line up because they got a 50%. Okay. So clearly I have 2 of these switched, or more, I guess. So which ones are kind of flip-flopped? Probably number 5 and number 2, I would say, are the most split. So maybe 2 is Oris, and maybe 5 is no, because that would be moving 2 correct ones from this paper. So if I need to switch out a right answer for a wrong answer here, probably number 1, and either number 2 or number 5. I'm not really sure which one. Let's do number 1 and number 5. So let's say number 1 is actually General Teskin, and number 5 is actually, I don't know, Archeries? I need to look at the other papers again. So this person's would be fine. No, because this moved 2 correct answers to 2 incorrect answers. So probably I need to switch 1 and 2. So number 5 is probably still Araja. And number 2 is probably Oris. So that one would be correct. This person got number 1 wrong, and number 4 wrong. This person got number 2 wrong, and number 5 wrong. And then this person got number 1, number 4, and number 5 wrong. So everyone's score lines up correctly. So in that case, the correct answer for number 1, first crowned ruler, would be General Teskin. City in Fen Aries named after a historical figure would be Oris. Not sure what to do with that information, because it could just be like named after Orinda, but maybe there was somebody actually named Oris. How many sons did the 4th king of Orindia have? 2. Or the 5th era lasted 22 years. Araja was the realm that did not ally with Fen Aries. And that's the one that's just directly south of Fen Aries, which is interesting. Especially when you consider how far away some of these other realms are, who apparently did choose to ally with Fen Aries. Huh. And then the black flag is forbidden to be flown at full staff. Okay. Interesting. So that is a little bit more. Lore. History is penned by the victors. Seems like a weird thing to put. I mean, it's true, and it's always something that you should consider. It's not really something that, if I were running an authoritarian regime, not something that I would be putting in my classrooms. Because I don't want them thinking too hard about it. Okay, 3 keys left. I think we're fine to do this. Could do gymnasium again, which would not be that big of a deal with my current setup with the steps and everything. And it would get me to more places. So let's do it. Ah, and even less reason to worry about steps. Good. Okay. Gonna run out of keys soon. I mean, I'd like to go all the way across if possible. So let's do archived. Nope, not getting all the way across. That's okay. There is a gem in here. So that's good. And I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. I guess that means that whole right section is now cut off. But that's not the biggest deal in the world. Let's head back to the passageway, which I think is this way. And I have made it to rank 8. Do I want to do this? Not yet, because I still have plenty of steps. Let's do this and hope for... Well... Let's just see what this is. Okay, not bad. Okay, and... Did I check the top gymnasium door? Because I don't know for sure whether that one's locked or not. I think it's worth it to go check. We've got enough steps. Probably need to go ahead and make use of the crown at some point this run. I don't know why I keep not doing that. Yeah, it is locked. I've got 2 gems. I think we just need to go the other way. And I think we have to just hope that that way is going to be okay. All right. Let's see what's up here. West Wing Hall brings me across. That one's archived. I think we have to go West Wing Hall. Yeah, this is not going to be the time that we get Lady Epson's bedroom. Okay. That is locked. And gymnasium is locked. So that is it for this run, I think. We did get an extra classroom, which is nice. I'm trying to think, should I go to the foundation? Maybe. I might take a crack at that puzzle again. Let's go ahead and put the crown back. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else in here that I'd rather keep. So we'll put that back, and then might want to go to the dining room, which is this way. Go ahead and get refreshed on my steps. And that's a lot of steps too, because I had the boiler room. Awesome. And then we'll go ahead and head to the foundation. Do I want to set that back to the other one? Probably. I think that would be a good idea. Actually, I don't think I need to reopen the door. I guess we don't know that for sure. It's not going to hurt anybody to set this back, because we can just set it back again, so that's fine. And there we go. Okay, got that turned on, and we'll find out next time if the door is still open. Okay, and then yes, right here. Let's head back down and take a look at some more sigils. I feel like we could pretty easily trial and error some of those sigils. I don't know if I'm going to try that necessarily, but I might have enough information about some of these to just go ahead and try them. Yeah, going this way. I could also go back and check what's in that other basement area. Although I don't think there's anything there. Oh no, I need a magnifying glass for that. That's what I need. Okay, these open back up. That's fine. Let's look in here. We've got this one solved. Oh, that looks good. That's a puzzle that we don't understand yet. Over here is just a postcard. Yes, I think we saw this in a picture. Yeah, because that's this. Is that the statue that I saw? No, I'm not sure. I think so, though. Because I think the procession was kind of moving along this way. Okay. And then Morajai box. What's interesting is these are called Morajai boxes, but Morajai is its own realm, so they are making boxes for each of the realms, I guess. Just kind of interesting. Right. Red tiles. All black tiles on the box turn red. All white tiles on the box turn black. The outclassed and struggling reinforcements of the dwindling Desolate's army. Okay. So the question is, what does orange do? I don't know. Because I can move stuff around. Although those don't do anything when those are moved around. That can move to the bottom. Pressing white turns it gray. Yes. And then pressing orange turns it gray when the one below it is gray. Yes. Okay. So what we need to do is get what color do we need to get to all of the corners? That is the question. It's not green, it's not black, it's not white. It's not gray. It's red. Okay. But okay, and they need to stay in the corners. Okay. So I guess the question is, how do we get 4 reds? So with what we know, we can definitely get 2 extra reds. Because black ones turn red and white ones turn black. But I guess I don't understand how to get more than that. So that like jumps to the bottom, switches with a white. Does it also switch with the... I guess maybe it switches with everything, right? I guess that's... Oh, that switches corners. That's interesting. And the orange ones don't really seem to do anything other than change to gray. But gray doesn't seem to do anything, unless I'm completely missing something. Right, and then the only ways I can move are like this. Wait, this one, this one turned gray. This one did not. Why did this one not turn gray? I have no clue. Now it turned gray. So something I still don't understand about the orange. Okay. Does not turn gray. Does not turn gray. Does turn gray. And there's specifically a gray one above and below it. That one turned green. Okay. So it turns into what's above and below it. So it has to have the same color above and below. And that is how we can potentially get 4 blacks. Okay. That seems doable. Man, I can't believe I just like brute forced my way into... I mean, it's not really brute forcing. I'm just learning, but... Still. Is there any advantage to keeping this white, though? Yes. Sorry, that was obvious, because I need it to turn black. And if it turns gray, it can't turn black. So, what we need to do is probably have a black one up at the top. But also... No, yeah. Oh, I keep hitting the wrong thing. You need a black one at the top, and then... Oh, yeah, we're going for red. I keep thinking we're going for black, but we're going for red, which is fine, because that's easier and doable. So if I hit this twice... then both of these will be red, and then I can turn this red, and then we'll have 4 red on the board. The problem with that is that I'm not sure I'll be able to move the ones that I want to move. So, what do I do about that? Could do this. Okay, so I don't know what I just did. I mean, I think we just need to try some stuff. I need to stop overthinking it without actually just doing stuff, because I can reset it if I want to. So if we hit that, top right corner, top left corner is red. If we hit it again, that's red. Now that's red. But I don't have another way to move them, because the grays don't do anything. Yeah, this just goes back and forth. This just goes back and forth. And I somehow need a way. Yeah, to get things moving. So there's not a way to have more than one black on the board, I don't think. Because once I hit red, then black turns red and white turns black, which still only leaves one black on the board. Man, even after understanding how this works, still a really tough puzzle. So theoretically, I need a black right here, or sorry, a red up here and a red right here, so that I can turn this into a red. Then I can hit both of those, which would, well, no, sorry, these are reds. What I would need is green at the other corners, so that I can hit those, and then this one will also become red. But I still don't know what that does for me, because I can't move those around anymore. So then I would just have a red here, and then red, 2 reds in the corners, but I need 4 reds in the corners. And I wouldn't be able to move them any more than I already have. Do the grays do anything? That's really, I feel like, what it comes down to. There's not a way to get the green. Well, okay. I could turn one of the oranges green and still end up with 4 reds. What would that do, though? I mean, I guess we could find out. So we could do this, and this, and this, and then this is green. And that switches over there. Okay. I don't think that there's a way to move that, though. So if we put the black one up here, well, actually we need a white one on the bottom. We need one of these on the bottom, but we need to move this over the, okay, I see, oops. I see, and then I don't do. We want that, and then we want that, and then we want that, right? Because then this can become red. Unfortunately, there's still no other way to move these around. Like, I'm still just switching them back and forth. So there's something I'm not understanding. Once I turn everything red, how do I then move them? I don't feel like there's a way to do that. Pressing the white turns it gray. So now everything's gray. Doesn't really seem to help anything though. I just feel like, since I know how it works, that I can get it. But then I don't get it. So at the end of the day, I can end up with 5 reds, right? And then 2 greens and 2 grays. I can't change the grays as far as I can tell. And I can't change the greens. I can move the greens, but they only switch back and forth between 2 spots. And the end goal is to have all 4 corners be red, which means greens can't be in the corners once everything is red. Okay. So having them not in the corners solves the problem of having them in the corners. But the other problem is that I need the reds in the corners. And the only ones that can become red are this one, which are in corners, which is great. But then this one and this one, which are not in corners. Is there a way to put them in corners before changing them? If they're in a corner, how do I change them? Huh. I mean, the first question to solve would be, how do I even get them into a corner? I don't know. Pressing the black one rotates the row, but I can't even get the black one into the middle row at all, right? Because I can switch it with the green, but it's only going to be directly across the board, which is not going to get me onto the middle row. Yeah, and the white one does seem to always turn gray. It doesn't like change the color that it changes to. So if I turn, I guess here's another question. Let's let's do this and change this to red. No, this does not change to red. I was wondering if it would change if the two colors in its row were the same. But it seems to just be above and below. Or two other colors in the same column. I don't know, because I haven't seen any other orange positions. But it still doesn't make sense to me how we would move those reds. I feel like there must be something I'm missing. I think I'm gonna have to come back to it. Yeah. Which is fine. I can come back to it. But it just feels like something I should be able to solve now. It's not. And that's okay. What do we have? Yeah, so this is Orinda Aries. This is Fen Aries. Maybe I just need to open all 8 doors before I can solve that. Or maybe, like, you know, most of the doors before I can solve that map puzzle in room 46. Because I'm thinking it's probably just the order in which he wrote these postcards. This is the last postcard of 8. Even though it's the second door, it's the last one because he took his trip starting from here, went around the world, came back. So this one, you know, Orinda / Fen Aries is going to be 1 and 8. 2 through 7, I don't have any idea what order those came in. I don't know what color. I don't know anything about whatever realm this is. This would be Nuance. I don't know anything about Nuance. I saw a stamp from Nuance and it had a blimp on it, and that's all I know. Yeah, I don't know. The one thing I did forget to check was if the 4 diagonal directions meant anything for Fen Aries. Looking at the really imprecise maps that I drew, I don't think that those specific directions hold any significance, just based on the map. It could be that there's something I'm missing, but yeah, not sure. Is that something? I feel like that might be something. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know anything about Nuance, so can't do anything with that. But I think whatever key I find next, which I'm also unsure about, it's gonna have to be one of these that I have a little more information about. So maybe this one, Iraja, maybe this one, which would be, sorry, no, this one's Iraja. This one is Arch Aries. This one is Kararka. Yeah, or maybe even Orinda Aries, which I still do need to find that sigil again. And I'm going to need the tomb to do that, or I'm going to need to actually get a powered up pump room. Okay, this is still open, which makes me think that this probably doesn't need to be powered on. So I can probably stop messing with that. And I don't like to look up outside stuff too much. I would like to look up chest notation. And what kind of worries me is that The game, I guess, could teach me chess notation on its own if it really wants me to know it. Notation for moves. Actually, also for pieces. Queen would be... What? What would queen be? Q. Just Q. Okay. So let's go up here and see what the code entry looks like. We have to spin things around though. Don't even remember which way it goes. So this might take a second. And whichever way it spins, or whichever, I don't know. I'm going to try this for a short minute. I think it's that. And then I'm going to call it a day. Because I've got nothing else to do. Nope, I was one off. Yeah, did I move it 3 times? Should have just moved it once. That's okay. Move it one more time. And then I'll probably take a better note of where that door is in relation to where I am. It's just the next one over. Okay. Now I know. Let's head up and find out that this is probably not the one with the code. Oh, it is. Good. Okay, so what can I do here? I'm assuming I probably can't do a Q, right? No, doesn't look like I can. So why... I mean, maybe the 8 is just a red herring. Maybe I can't do anything with 8. Is there a T here? There is. Could I do V8? Nope. Can I do key 8? No, there's no K. What else can I do? There's no T here. I was going to try just spelling out date. Thinking that might do something. What other 4-letter things have I even seen? Nothing, right? Is there an A here? There is. Is it May 8? It is. Okay. Well, I don't know why I didn't try that before. But also, what is May 8th? What is the significance of that? I'm not sure. So, which makes it feel kind of like I brute forced that, but honestly, it's the only date that I could put in. So, oh, this is 1. Interesting. May 8th. There we go. Yeah, I feel like they must have just expected me to realize that that was the only date I could put in. Okay. Dear Baron Sinclair, to begin, my name is Worth Lavole. No, I think that's Laud. I think I'm just bad at reading this person's handwriting. Okay, my name is Worth Laud. My father used to work for your father, the Right Honorable Baron Thomas Sinclair, between the years of 1915 and 1918. The former having died last month, at the advanced old age of 89, may he sleep in soot and ash. He left behind his widow, 7 children, and 30-odd grandchildren. I write to you today, however, not to inform you of these family affairs of little consequence, but to tell you a little bit about my father. He lived his life, towering above us in solemn silence, like many members of his and your father's generation. He never spoke of the work he did in the mountains of Reddington, or the famous estate in which he was stationed. He never spoke of the Baron, not once. I tell you this only to relate that he never betrayed the confidence your father placed in him. The secrets he kept for your family he took with him underground. His elderly comrades and colleagues from his old mining outfit proved, however, to be not nearly as discreet and considered with their words. During the wake, fueled by a seemingly endless supply of spirits, these venerable gentlemen embarked on a journey down memory lane, recounting as much of the good old days as they could dredge up. While such reminiscences might typically be dismissed as the fanciful ramblings of age, the volume and specificity of their accounts lend a certain credence to their words. Now I am not a presumptive man. I don't presume these stories to be true. I don't presume your house is host to secrets of this magnitude. Yet, I find myself irresistibly drawn to the idea of sharing these tales, true or not. They seem, after all, stories worthy of being heard. I wonder if my current abundance of idle time fuels this urge. Perhaps I have too much time on my hands. Perhaps if one were to engage me in some worthwhile and profitable enterprise, my eagerness to pass the time by telling stories would be curbed. I eagerly await a response from your lordship, Mr. Worthlaud. So he just straight up blackmailing Baron Sinclair. Interesting. We're not blind to the irony of blackmailing you for a blackmail letter, and we're not proud to join the endless procession of those who have knocked on your mailbox looking for a handout. Particularly so when our methods lack the refined sophistication and class that this author so effortlessly wields. I need to read that again. So, whoever's writing this is blackmailing Baron Sinclair or blackmailing Worthlaud? Probably Baron Sinclair. So maybe they found this specific blackmail letter and said, oh, they must have something secret. We don't even know what they are, but we know somebody who's blackmailed them. And used that to blackmail Baron Sinclair. Interesting. And I wonder who we is. Not sure. Okay, what's this? Another foreman's log from 1916. I knew what we were looking at as soon as we uncovered the first spire, but it wasn't until the first floor plan was unearthed that most of the crew realized what ruins we were exhuming. The border was the same pitch as the sunless cavern we found it in, a dark-trimmed floor plan of ill-fated Orindia. We had found an authentic black print. The sooner we seal this site back up, the better for us all. Interesting. Dark trim floor plan of ill-fated Orindia. I wonder if that's what the torch room is. Like if that's what they're talking about here. With the sigil of Orindia. Or Orinda Ares is what I thought it was. Maybe that's Orindia. Treasure trove. Plus 5 coins for each time you have drafted treasure trove. That doesn't seem that great. Unless I'm missing something about it. Like, permanently, every time I've ever in the entire game drafted treasure trove, just gives me 5 extra coins every single time. Maybe. I could see that being more useful. Okay. Whoa. No, that's what they're talking about. Whoa. My goodness. That is wild. Okay. So there's... And I cannot tell what the scale is here, but I'm moving and it's moving a lot back there. So I'm assuming it's small-ish. But there's like a whole model city, looks like, of Arindia. And Arindia looks very menacing. And I can see why they might be a little put off by that. I'm trying to figure out what that little thing is way back there. I don't know. Huh. I wonder if I'll find a way over there. Maybe. Very interesting. Huh. Okay, well, I'm glad I came to check that. Once again, I can't believe that I didn't try that last time. I feel like I tried all of the other months. Okay, somehow I've ended up on the railing. That's fun. Okay. And I can just kind of look out this way. They called it a black print. I wonder what that means. Oh, stars are out. It is getting late. And it's also getting late for me. So, I don't think there's any other way to go here. Both doors are locked. Which means it is time to call it a day. And I don't have a break room, unfortunately. Alright, well, guess we're calling it a day here. Alrighty, red campus of tomorrow. 5 red rooms. I did feel like I had more red rooms than usual. Maybe next time I'll actually use the crown. But I'm always hesitant to like permanently remove a room. I mean, not permanently, but you know, just say, no, I don't want this room at all this run. It's kind of scary, even though most of those rooms are not fun. We did get to classroom 6, which was good. We learned some fun facts about Fen Ares, I guess, and the war. The War of the Fifth Era, I think is what it's called. We did read a book in the library, which it did give us some information about the curse, but I'm not sure how much information, like usable information, there was in there. But overall, I mean, we found a new red envelope, which is great. And also another gem, which seems to be like a permanently available gem. Yeah. Huh. So like theoretically, if I were running low on gems, as long as I get to the foundation, I can come down to where I am now and just get that red gem. That's pretty nice. And in addition to that, there's a gem in one of the outer rooms, right? Yeah, the shelter, and a gem in the boudoir. Are those the only safes that I've opened? Yeah. Yes. So I think I have 3 red envelopes now. And what's interesting is that I do remember Alzara saying that there are 8 red envelopes, but we'll only be able to open 7 of them, or we'll only be able to find 7 of them. And that does kind of line up with what the codes are opening, because if we count small gates, 8 dates crack 8 safes. The small gate did not lead to a red envelope, which means the other 7 do, and that leaves one of the 8 red envelopes out. But I wonder how we would know anything about that 8th red envelope if we don't find it. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like or a positive comment, because that really helps me out. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.